calls to order the Criminal Justice Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 11th, 2009.
Okay, roll call. Chairman Augusta?
Present.
Vice Chairman Christ?
Present.
Brown?
Present.
Greer?
Present.
Johnson is absent. Vieira?
Present.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second. Public business from the floor.
We have no public attendees.
Okay. That brings us to new business item number 2. And before we get into this, we'll be removing new business item number 4, report on neighborhood impact program. Commissioner Johnson is not present today, so we'll be removing that from the agenda, as well as new business item number 6. Ms. Henson will be reporting next time on this issue.
That is correct.
New business item number 2, we would like to introduce Michelle Woods from the Parole Board, who has very graciously come to visit us and speak with us today.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Woods, and I'm the parole administrator for what we call the Northern Parole District. What that means is I supervise the 3 parole units in the Antelope Valley, and I supervise 3 parole units in Pasadena. So I split my time between 2 offices. I've worked for the state for 21 years as a parole agent, and my prior experience also includes as a probation officer with San Diego County. Thank you for inviting me here today. I hope that I can make a brief presentation to you in regards to some of the questions that were directed toward me. The first one I'd like to talk about is how parolees are assigned to a community. Parolees are assigned based on their last legal residence, their county of commitment where they last legally resided prior to going to prison. So if an individual last resided in Valencia, the county is Los Angeles, that's where they parole to. Years prior, it used to be that parolees would parole to their last county of commitment, but that changed, and now it's their last legal residence. Okay. In the institution, a parolee is given a document, what we call a release program. On that paper, he or she provides the address where they're going to reside. That's sent to our RPS desk, which is in Los Angeles, and they disseminate the cases according to the address that the parolee has proposed. So, for example, if an individual puts that they're going to reside in Lancaster, they put an address on there, and that's where the case is sent to the Antelope Valley parole units for supervision. That case is then transferred to the parole unit, and the parole agent, we used to have the time, will try to verify that that is a good residence, either by going out and checking it out beforehand or by calling and saying, can that individual reside there? So that's how the cases are assigned. We do get random cases where an individual has no address and the RPS randomly assigns them throughout Los Angeles County. So, for example, in Pasadena, on any given month, I might get 2 or 3 random assignments, and once that case comes in, it's assigned to a parole agent, and the agent makes an attempt to locate housing for that individual. Normally, it's maybe a drug program, a sober living. We have residential multi-service centers in Los Angeles where a parolee can go and live for free, get any type of services that they need, save up, get a job, and reside in those in that living environment. We also have what we call parolee service centers. We have 2 of those. One is located in Van Nuys and one is located in Hollywood. Once again, where a parolee can go and reside and get the services that they are needing. The second type of case that units may receive are what we call a transfer investigation. An individual last legal residence might have been San Bernardino County. Their family moved to Los Angeles County. The individual is married, or the parents live in Los Angeles County, and they want to transfer their parole. They may do that. That process takes the sending county, San Bernardino, will send us a file. We'll have an address. We'll go out. We'll make sure that that residence is a good residence and that it meets the criteria. The number one criteria being that it's a relative, a parent, an uncle, an aunt, or a wife. We make the determination if that is good and it meets the criteria. We accept that case. They transfer that case to us. Now it's being supervised within LA County. If that individual violates, goes back to prison, we return that case back to the county of record, the sending county. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
How many parolees do we have in the Antelope Valley right now being supervised?
Oh, I couldn't tell you right offhand.
Who would have that information?
I have that information. I could provide that for you. We have 3 parole units, 10 agents, somewhere I would say between 2,500 to 3,000 perhaps. Yeah, I could provide that information for you though.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
So when the parolee is assigned within this county, at least on that first portion that you spoke about, is not necessarily tied to their prior residence, whether it be the city, town, whatever, as long as they're within the county?
Correct. A parolee can live anywhere in Los Angeles County. The pattern for most parolees is they return home. You know, they return home unless their family have moved somewhere else. But most of them return to that area that they've lived in for most of their lives.
Has anybody taken a look at a type of balancing? Is there substantially more parolees in one area as compared to another area, and what may attribute to that? Have you taken a look at that?
No, sir, I have not. I would say most of the contribution, though, goes to the cost of living and where employment is located. And the public transportation also plays a role in that.
How about where these services are provided, Van Nuys and Hollywood, are they taken into consideration as well? Are those parolees as a service?
Where those facilities are located, the cases are not transferred to that city. For example, if we have a parolee in Antelope Valley and we place them in a parolee service center in Van Nuys, we maintain supervision of that case still. The individual resides there at the facility, but we still maintain the supervision of the case.
I'm sorry, I didn't, when Mr. Paris asked you how many parole agents you had here,
Parole agents?
Agents.
Oh, he asked for parolees.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Agents, we have 3 units. We have approximately 32 parole agents here in the Antelope Valley.
Are you mid-talk, or in other words, I have a bunch of questions so far but I'm happy to let you finish and then we can chat.
I'm finished with that portion.
Let's keep going.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I ask? One thing you mentioned, we in the Antelope Valley have an MOU, which is more restrictive than the policy you talked about, which is only people can be paroled here that have a pre-incarceration tie to this area.
Family ties, correct.
Is that still being enforced?
Yes, it is.
So victim protection, if someone in Los Angeles can't be assigned in L.A., they wouldn't come here if their last residence was Los Angeles, correct? City of Los Angeles.
I'm sorry. Victim protection, you mean like if the victim resides in Los Angeles?
Yeah. If they can't live at their last residence because it's within 35 or 50 miles, whatever the criteria is of the victim,
Right.
they wouldn't just automatically be put up here.
No, not necessarily.
So that MOU is still in effect?
We still are practicing that.
I have a question. You talked about family ties here. They would be returned to their family ties. What constitutes a family tie? If they have a cousin that lives there, is that sufficient?
If their prior legal residence indicated that they lived here and they resided with that family member, that would probably constitute a cousin, because there are often times where it might have been that cousin that reared that individual, where there is no parent involved.
If they're coming back from parole, it didn't seem to work the first time, I guess would be my question, as far as returning them. The other question I had was, you talked about in one of your criteria is the transfer investigation.
Correct.
And you talked about if there's a good residence. How do you define a good residence?
A residence meaning that the address is where it says it is. You know, often individuals give an address and you go out to verify it and it's a building. It's not the correct address. That they have a place to sleep while they're there. That the family wants them there. We take all that into consideration. That the family can assist them or they have employment that is viable for them.
Okay. And do you find that with most communities there's a concern like we have here about how many people are returned and who is returned here or brought here to begin with, I guess? Or do you find there are communities that, with open arms want to have parolees returned to them?
I find that there's a balance that, individual communities don't have a problem with parolees residing there. I think the biggest concern that they do have is that they're compliant with their conditions and they're not, doing illegal activities. And if so, that there is enforcement of those that are violating.
Are they eligible to live in a Section 8 house?
Section 8 doesn't allow for those that are felons to reside there, and we would not accept an individual that to reside in a Section 8 housing. We've worked very closely with the Commission in regards to those individuals not being approved for residing with someone who's on Section 8.
So if the individual's on parole, came from a Section 8 house, where does he go?
We could place him in a parolee service center, a residential multi-service center. And some parolees are eligible. They have applied for Section 8. If they are accepted, that's one thing also. There are those who might have some type of handicap that apply for that Section 8, have gone through the process, and they're approved for it. Then we would allow those. But if they're not on that rental and they're not approved by Section 8, they cannot reside there.
The addresses of the parolees that are in our city, is that information available to the Sheriff's Department?
Not readily. I mean, we don't provide that to them on a readily basis. If they needed information about someone, we do work with them and provide that. But we don't give them a list of addresses of parolees.
The city's currently working on a computer software or program that will allow us to track the crimes that are occurring within our city. Would we be able to get the addresses of the parolees to put into that program so that we can track where the parolees are versus where the crime's occurring?
Mr. Parris, I'm not able to answer that question. I'd have to run that through my supervisor. I'm not really familiar with that.
Okay.
As in regards to providing that type of address. I know what happens is that we are contacted by law enforcement and they will want a list of individuals, for example, who have a commitment for burglary or for auto theft, and we provide that information to them.
I believe the information we would like to have is actually the information where the parolees reside and which parolees we would have the ability to do warrantless searches on if crimes are occurring within their neighborhood. How would we get that information?
Well, we wouldn't just readily provide that, just like I said. In regards to if you had someone who you suspected of committing a crime, we work with the sheriffs and we go out there and we do the searches. But just to give you all parolees' addresses, I'm not able to do that at this point. I could check with my supervisors and let them know what type of process you're trying to implement to see, how we could work together.
And why I'm asking for this information is I've recently met with some people from LA City that actually work in the same area, and they've told me they have that information available within their program. So if they're getting it, I'm expecting that there must be a way that we can get it.
There could be, I'm just not aware of it.
Who would you be able to check with somebody?
Yes, I will. I'll do that.
Report back to
Yeah.
the city manager? on
Yes,
that?
I will do that.
That'd be great. I
Okay,
sure appreciate it.
no problem.
Thank you.
Any more questions in regards to the transfer process? I was also asked to talk about the furloughs, the 2-day-a-month furloughs, and how it affects the parole department. We are classified in what we call Category 3, so therefore we're open 5 days a week as we normally have been. And the furloughs in that respect, staff can take 2 furlough days a month as they choose, and if they choose not to take them during that month, those hours are banked, and they can use them at a later date within the 18-month period. So we are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I was also asked what that impact might be. Right now it's too early to determine, but we have staff here every day, and we're still trying to keep up business as usual. So in regards to being closed down, we're not. We're available. I brought cards if you need them from me. Questions?
A question about the number of parole agents you have. What's the number of parolees that each agent is supervising presently in the Antelope Valley?
Okay, the caseload you're talking about. The Parole Agent series starts with the Parole Agent 1. That individual is a case-carrying agent, and that's our entry-level Parole Agent 1. And the caseload is determined by points. And the points are determined by the classification of that particular parolee. The case points per the union contract is 154 points. Right now, agents are over 154 points. I say they average anywhere from 180 to 200 points. Part of that is staff. Our staffing individuals might be out on medical. Okay, we have some vacancies. We also have specialized caseloads. One of the specialized caseloads we have are called second strikers. Those parolees on that caseload are second strikers. If they reoffend, they'll have their third strike. That is called a specialized caseload because there are only 40 parolees to one parole agent on that caseload. We also have GPS caseloads. We have 4 GPS caseloads in the Antelope Valley. Those GPS caseloads, they track sex offenders. 2 of the caseloads have a count of 20 parolees to 1 agent, and the other 2 have a 40 to 1 caseload.
Are your agents peace officers?
Yes, they are.
And do you have any type of reserve program where you use citizens as reserves to assist?
No, we do not.
Ever think about that?
I think about it all the time because we do have a volunteer program where individuals can submit an application to become a volunteer. Usually those are the college students who need some type of intern work, and we're really out here, I'm really trying to push that because every little bit helps. Those individuals who can document, do the paperwork, those type of things, we're really in need of it. It helps the parole agent quite a bit. But in regards to like a sheriff's reserves, we do not have that.
What would it take for your agency to look into setting something like that up? It seems to me with the budget cuts that are coming and all the cutbacks, and at some point you're going to have to look at how you're going to get people that can help you.
Alternatives,
right.
Correct. I think that it would take an individual presenting that and being able to do the research on that. I think that the biggest thing, of course, there is cost incurred because there's training that needs to be done for those individuals and the liability because they're not peace officers. But I just think that it would take someone sitting down and taking a look into that. Do
the parole agents come under, I'll ask this question more direct. Who's the union for the parole agents?
That could be another issue. The union for the parole agents is CCPOA. They're in bargaining unit 6, a very strong union within the state of California.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Michelle, how are we doing up here with parole? I mean, how successful are we? How many early discharges, and how many people are we revoking their parole and sending them back to prison? Do you have the numbers with you?
I don't. I'm sorry I wasn't asked to bring those,
Okay.
but I can provide it. We're doing good things about parole. We're really doing well working with law enforcement. Danya and I've talked about that, going out on different operations. We just instituted a team called CPED, and that's Community Parole Enforcement Team, where they're doing extra things. I have agents who have worked the fairgrounds and helping during the fair time, and this particular team, we're utilizing them to go out and do extra issues in regarding parolees. So just like law enforcement, LASO have certain types of specified teams, we're trying to do that also so that we can ensure the community that we are here, we are visible, and also going out to the schools, the neighborhoods, and letting them know what we do, doing career days in schools, going out and speaking to at-risk youth. So there's a variety of things that we are also participating in. In regards to violations, right now we have a variety of sanctions for parolees. One of them is called EID, that's in-home detention, where an individual might have a dirty drug test, and instead of sending them back to prison, we put a monitor on them, an EID monitor, so we can track their behavior. At the parole office here, we have a brand new parole office. All of you, I invite you to come out, and I can show you, give you a tour of that. We have 2 programs at that parole office. We have the STAR program, which stands for Substance Treatment and Recovery, where the parolee goes for 20 days. They get educated on substance abuse. They go to NA meetings. We also have a literacy lab at the parole office. So an individual who may not read or needs to enhance their literacy, they can come there, and that is free to the parolee. We have a variety of resources, not only here in the Antelope Valley, but a lot in Los Angeles County, where we're trying to plug parolees into community activities. If an individual, once again, gives a drug test, perhaps they fail to participate in STAR, we have now a program called ICDTP, and that stands for In Custody Drug Treatment, where they are placed into custody and they're released into drug programs. So another alternative in regards to the custody aspect of parole. But we also make arrests. We go out on sweeps. Those individuals who fail to comply, they are returned back to custody.
I think you're getting into it, and you may be moving towards that direction, but what type of programs are available in our community to help the parolees to be successful in
Antelope Valley?
In the Antelope Valley.
In the Antelope Valley, we have every week, we have a PACT program, and that's for those parolees who are released. When they first come out, they have to attend the PACT meeting, and at that PACT meeting, I have 2 Parole Agent 2s who run that PACT meeting with also a community resource coordinator, and we have vendors from the community that participate in that. They are employment vendors, drug programs, sober living, educational programs that participate every Wednesday. They come out and they provide those services for the parolee. An individual can do good on parole with the advantages of taking advantages of those vendors that are there. It's a one-stop shop. If an individual needs to be referred out to perhaps SSI, reading, employment, all those resources from the Antelope Valley participate in that program every week.
Thank you.
And if you're interested, once again, in seeing how that operates, please call me. I will invite you to come and see how it is. It's very good.
Michelle, if you'd be so kind, educate me a little bit. How does a prisoner become eligible for parole? And once eligible, how does the parole board make a decision whether or not to grant parole? How much of that's discretionary and how much of it is set by guidelines?
The guideline changed in 1977 where California went into a determinate sentencing law. So what happens is that an individual is sentenced to state prison and they're eligible for parole. The only time an individual has to go in front of the parole board per se is when they are committed to prison for life with the eligibility of parole. So those individuals, parolees that parole into the community, they're all eligible for parole. What happens is the determination if they're eligible for half-time credits once they get into the institution, the eligibility is determined by them working or going to school. Once they come out, once their date comes, they're automatically placed on parole. At the end of every year, they have what we call a discharge review. At that discharge review, the agent takes into account, does a report to the board as to their progress on parole. And at that time, the board makes a determination as to whether they're going to retain them or they're going to discharge them.
In the criminal law system, to get into prison, you have to commit a crime and be shown to have committed it beyond a reasonable doubt. To violate parole, what standard do you use?
We use preponderance of evidence, 51%. So what that means is that the board takes hearsay evidence, a dirty test. We provide them with the sample that proves that they're dirty. It may not be a law violation per se, but that preponderance allows us to take them to the board and look at their parole as a violation, and the board makes that determination as to whether to retain them in the community or return them back to prison.
We read a lot about overcrowding in prison, and I believe recently I saw something in the news about a judge mandating that a bunch of prisoners be released. How does this overcrowding affect the parole board and what you guys do?
Well, initially it affects us in regards to violators. That's why the alternative sanctions have come about, because it's been proven that it's cheaper to keep them in the community than it is to return them to prison. So in regards to that 3-judge panel that has recently come out, the overcrowding hasn't affected us yet. However, if they release those individuals and they release them to parole, then that's going to determine the supervision. We talked about the caseload points, and those points could go up. Right now they're talking about pink slips for staff, so hopefully that won't occur, so we can accommodate those individuals returning to the community.
And I think someone asked, what's the return rate of people that are released on parole? What percentage come back, and what factors determine who comes back and who doesn't? Can you predict who's going to bounce back?
Prediction somewhat based on record, yes, and I don't have those figures right now in regards to the recidivism rate. I would say, at a guess, it's probably running about 60%. It's high in regards to most of those offenders that we see returning for just violation is drug use. Those that commit new crimes and become parolees with new terms, I don't have those figures. But I can provide them.
Michelle, what is the frequency that agents are required to meet with their parolees?
It depends on the classification level. Our basic controlled service, they meet with the parole agent face-to-face in the residence every other month, and they also test depending on what their conditions of parole are. Those that are classified at a higher level, which we call high control, they meet with the parole agent twice a month. And those classifications are based on a variety of things. Their commitment offense, what they went to prison for, it's based on their prior arrest history, so those factors are taken into consideration when they're classified.
Kind of educate us a little bit on what that meeting consists of? The parole agent goes out, contacts the parolee, and tell us what happens.
Oh, at the resident, goes out, goes into the residence, maybe goes and, walks through. The first time that a parolee is released, the agent does what they call an initial home call. They go out to the residence, they verify where the parolee's sleeping, they verify who lives there, verify if there are any dogs there, because dogs are very important in our business. They verify if there are any type of weapons, and they look at the general layout of the residence. On a monthly basis or every other month when they go out, they speak to the parolee, talk to them about what the progress is, and may do just a viewing of what's going on in that household. They test them. They can either test them at the residence or they test them at the parole office. Get collateral contact, speak to a parent, speak to a wife, and generally try to ensure that that individual is following those conditions of parole. For example, they might go out and they talk to the wife. The family members are a really great resource to us because they give us that information that the parolee's not doing well, because they don't want that at their residence. So that might occur. Go out, the parolee's not there, talk to the mother, and the mother indicates there are some issues. We'll call that parolee into the office. We may not reveal the source, or we might, and we will try to get them on track. If the mother says he's using, we will go ahead and do a test and start looking for placement in some type of program to get assistance with that drug use.
What happens if a parolee fails to meet his monthly or every other month meeting?
If that's the case, we go out, they're not reporting, we'll put a warrant out for them. We call that absconding, absconding parole supervision. We make attempts to try to locate them, get them under control, and if we are not able to, we'll put out a warrant for their arrest. And our absconding rate here is really low because we do have 2 PACT agents who work very closely with law enforcement to go out. We get information that someone has returned home, and we go out, contact them at the residence, and make that arrest.
If a parolee gets arrested for a minor crime that wouldn't require, that might be it's a minor crime, for example, DUI or some other minor crime. Does the fact that they're on parole, is that information available? In other words, how would the Sheriff's Department know that they have a parolee in custody for some minor crime?
Oh, because we have a program called Leads, and the Sheriff's Department has access to that, and they are able to put that individual's name in there into Leads, and they're able to determine what their status is on parole, what their commitment offense is, and what their conditions of parole are. We also have, after hours, a 24-hour officer on duty. So the individual can call Sacramento and be patched into the officer on duty, and they can provide them with that information, that in fact, is a parolee.
Let's just assume hypothetically that somebody gets arrested, and for whatever reason they're busy and they don't run them through this LEADS program. How do you, from parole, find out about this arrest if the parolee doesn't tell you?
Well, the arresting agency, they call to get what we call a hold. And what that does is a hold prevents that parolee from bailing out. And once that hold is placed, we get notification via computer that the individual has been arrested.
Okay.
Michelle, I have a question. When you first started talking about the different categories and type of agents, there was, I guess, level 1, and then you went into some specialized caseload levels. Mm-hmm. And those first agents you described had a caseload, ideally, I guess, pursuant to your union agreement or whatever, that shouldn't exceed 154 points.
Correct.
And those points are assigned, predicated on the kind of case it is.
Correct.
Parolees convicted of. But I guess you're averaging 180 to 200. Would be the case points for those type of agents. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how much time on a monthly or every other month basis, how much time does a parole agent have that he has available to commit to a particular parolee, how much time are they really committed to being able to see them face-to-face, whether it be at the residence where the parolee is residing or whether it's at your offices somewhere? How much time do they have individually with them?
Whatever it takes. The agent does a lot in regards to one individual might take 30 minutes. That's because you're discussing a variety of things. You're trying to find placement for that individual. Maybe they need referrals to different resources. You might have another that might only take 15 minutes because that individual is employed. You test them. You find out that they're complying with all the conditions of parole. Agents, whatever time that it takes in order to assist that parolee, they take that time to do it.
I guess what I was trying to figure out was if in general, you mentioned a recidivism rate of 60%. I mean, I hear people talk about 70%, and every percent matters in the community. But if you've got a 60% recidivism rate and you've got agents that are, will acknowledge based on these numbers, are overloaded based on what they're supposed to be handling, I guess I'm just trying to quantify. Here you say whatever time is necessary, but on average, is that equivalent to have an hour with this person every month or every other month? Is it less than that?
I would say on average total per month, they could spend about an hour. They might spend 15 minutes at the residence. The parolee might come into the office during the week also for some information. It might take 15 or 20 more minutes there. Maybe they're in the STAR or LIT program. They go back there and talk to them. Could be about 10 more minutes at that time. So it's difficult to say on an average, but I could say maybe an hour, depending on the needs of that parolee. Some parolees take 3 hours because we have to transport them all the way down to Los Angeles for a program, ensure that they get there, ensure that everything's in compliance. It's difficult to put a time on that.
And the total number of parolees in Lancaster, you are unsure what that number is?
No, I'm not sure of that number right now. We just did what we call a redistricting, where now that in the Antelope Valley, and it's also occurring in Los Angeles County, we're within Region 3. That's what the parole region is called, where we're now defining boundaries by zip code. So we've divided up the zip codes here in Antelope Valley, and each unit has a certain amount of zip codes. And part of that is to facilitate contact. For example, we used to have agents that had cases way out in Little Rock, and then they'd have to come all the way back in and go to the west side. But now that we have this new redistricting based on zip codes, it makes it easier for parole agents to supervise those parolees within that zip code. Instead of seeing maybe 1 or 2 here or 3 or 4 there, they can see maybe up to 5 or 10 within that same zip code area, and it makes it more contiguous in regards to supervision.
And you also mentioned, I think there are 32 agents?
Yes.
Committed to this area?
Yes.
Do you have any idea how many of those agents actually live here within the city?
Oh, I'd say out of my agents that are out here, probably 90% reside in Antelope Valley, between Antelope Valley and Tehachapi. And I believe I'm the only one that lives down below, and that I live in Valencia. But everyone lives out here. And we have other parole agents that reside out here that work in Los Angeles, which is a long drive. And they're trying to, some of them, once they're eligible, and if we have vacancies, trying to transfer closer, because it does help in supervising to be close to home instead of on the 14.
I'm sorry, what type of programs does the parole have with the community as far as partnerships, the churches, the schools, that help you do your job and help the community be safer?
Like I said, we have a community resource coordinator, and she and the 2 PAC agents, they coordinate that. We work heavily with Grace Resource Center, in regards to supplies and food. Partnerships with school is basically those individual agents who are going out and making career days. We don't have a designated school, but we are available to go out there talking about the careers, talking to at-risk youth. We work close with the job source individuals who assist in getting parolees jobs. So we work very close with the vendors.
Are there any programs with, say, the high school district to help the parolees get their GEDs or their high school diplomas, or with the junior college?
They're able to do that. They're able to do that at our literacy lab. We help them prepare for that, and then they're referred to the adult school in order to get their GEDs. But there's not one particular high school that we work with, but it starts with our literacy lab. And then once that individual is prepared and ready to take the test, then they're referred to the adult school to take the GED test or the high school diploma.
And are there any type of mentoring programs for the parolees within the community?
No, sir, we do not have that. There was a program in Los Angeles that we had, and I'm just forgetting the name right now, where parolees were paired with attorneys, and it was a mentoring program, but due to funds, that's been cut out within the last 2 months. Hopefully that will be able to come back, because it was really a really excellent program where they were mentored by attorneys. The parolees were coupled up with them based on the attorney's requirement and also on the parolee's past. I just thought of the name and I forgot it, but I'll think of it.
And that program was discontinued?
Continued,
because of
yeah,
funding?
due to funding. It was a contracted program with the state.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Michelle, part of our job is to lower the crime rate. So if you had a wish list, how can we help you accomplish that?
Communication. Communication. If you hear something or you're displeased with something, let me know, because sometimes, I hear things, oh, well, this is going on, and we're not aware of that. So my number one wish list would be communication. Come out to the parole office. Come and see the agents. Maybe if I need to, I could try to arrange a ride-along so you can see what they do. They go over and beyond what needs to be done. They're very dedicated to the community. They're very committed to the job, and they have the same concerns that all of you in here have in regards to protection of the community. That would be my number one wish list. My second wish list would be able to fund more positions so we can get individuals and we can keep them. And with the state of the budget right now, that makes that difficult. And the last thing, I'm trying to put together a quarterly meeting with law enforcement so they can, come in, see the agents, because we do a lot of work by the telephone and they don't know who they all are. So to be able to program that together so that we can be one force here in the community and going out and doing our mission.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to give you my cell number. You can ask Don. I respond. I'm not one that goes, oh, I forgot I'm on TV. I'm sorry. I respond to everything. All you need to do is call me, and I will ensure that I get back to you or have a staff member get back. If you have any concerns, I'm available. My cell number is...
You might want to do that
Oh,
privately.
okay. That's true. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you, Shelley. Any more questions?
Shelley, could we get this over here? Could we get Michelle's cell phone and email address just sent to us?
Yes, I already have her email, and I'm going to get her cell when she's away from the microphone, and I'll email it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, thank you very much for coming today and enlightening us. We
Thank
appreciate that
you.
very
Thank you very much for inviting me. Those numbers, I will get back with Shelley and get those numbers for you so that you are aware. And when you invite me again, I'll make sure I have them for you. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Continuing to new business, item number 3, discussion, possible action on establishment of commission goals and mission. I'd like to call on Deputy City Manager Jason Cottle, please.
Chairman, honorable members of the Commission, before you today is you'll have a paper there that's the Criminal Justice Commission goals, objectives, and mission. At our last meeting, we talked briefly about discussion about advise, educate, and advocate as the main principles of the Commission, and you directed staff through Mr. Bozigian to come back and provide what we believe to be a beginning point, a starting point of identifying specific written Commission goals and objectives, and these are before you today. And I'll read through them and give some of the justification that staff had, and then obviously they're up for discussion, change, modification, input, however you see fit. This is, of course, your goals as a Commission, your goals as a citizen advisory group, so your input obviously is the essential to that process. And I'll read them, and then I'll, as I go through the sections, I'll give some background and some thoughts about how we came up with that and why. And so we'll start with the Commission mission. The Criminal Justice Commission will use its control and influence to advocate, educate, and advise the City Council, City staff, and community stakeholders on policy, procedures, and programs that influence the nature, amount, and severity of Part 1 crimes in the City of Lancaster. I think that's generally the overview. There is, as we get further, there is no strict authority necessarily to direct, but as individuals and as a collective authority, you'll hear as we go through the process, both as individuals on the Commission as well as your collective body as a Commission, definitely have the ability to accomplish those three goals: educate, advocate, and advise. The Commission goals, and it's one simple goal which was stated at a previous meeting. The goal of the Criminal Justice Commission will be to assist in the lowering of the Part 1 crimes to 300 crimes per 10,000 residents. As stated on a number of occasions, I don't know that that's up for debate. Commission duties, excuse me, and I'm a little under the weather. Commission duties to advocate, thanks Shelley, to advocate, the Commissioners will use their control, influence, and collective abilities to serve as advocates for programs and policies which help achieve the stated goal. It will also be imperative that the Commission also advocate against existing policies and programs which do not advance the stated goals. The use of these controls and abilities will assist in holding accountable those agencies which influence the Part 1 crime statistics but are not accountable to the City Council and city residents collectively. In theory, and we've talked about it a little bit before, is that there are organizations that do not respond or are not accountable to the City Council, to Mr. Bozigian, or to the Commission, frankly. They are accountable to the citizen organization, though, to the citizens of the community, and that's who you represent. And I think as part of this advocacy group, you have influence, for example, over parole. We just heard from paroles, the court systems, the DA. The City Council not directly has authority over them or direction, but you as citizens do. And as citizens, you have authority as it relates to your, I guess, power that's derived as citizens by the nature of your voting abilities, by the nature of your ability to influence those decision makers. And that's where the advocacy comes in, is your how do I put it, your entry into as a citizen, your authority as citizens. To educate, Commissioners will use their individual and collective influence and abilities to communicate with and educate the public, becoming a respected source of the facts surrounding the criminal justice system. These facts will include the successes and failures of the system, comparative safety statistics, and method and tactics for community safety and involvement. The education process shall be used to influence behaviors, decision makers, and criminals. This proactive focus on education will at all times assist in the reduction of Part 1 crimes to a level of 300 crimes per 10,000 residents. To advise, the Commissioners will use their individual and collective influence and abilities to advise the City staff and the City Council on community criminal justice efforts. Although very influential, there should be no perceived authority over the process, staff, and outcomes. The advice should be focused on policy direction, council direction, community outreach efforts. The advice should be carefully produced to ensure that the focus remains on the overriding goal of lowering Part 1 crimes to 300 per 10,000 residents. The next item is a Commission of Citizen Experts. The key to the success of the Commission will be the amount and accuracy of the information received and heard. Serving as Commission Serving as a commission of citizen experts will increase the Commission's authority in the community and the criminal justice process. In order to achieve this goal, the Commission will hear presentations and testimony presented by the criminal justice stakeholders in an effort to learn and understand all facets of the local criminal justice system. The Commission will also serve as the recipient and repository of this information. This information gathering process will give Commissioners an understanding necessary to advise, educate, and advocate for the City Council and City staff. With this accurate, timely, and ongoing information, the Commission of Experts will exist to assist in the reduction of the Part 1 crimes. The list of the criminal justice stakeholders are as follows: County Sheriff's Department, City of Lancaster Public Safety Office, City of Lancaster Code Enforcement, Section 8 Administration, Los Angeles County Mental Health, District Attorney's Office, State Prison System, Municipal Court Judges, Muir Loma Detention Center, Los Angeles County Animal Control, State Parole, Probation Department, County Social Services Department, and the County Department of Children and Family Services. And this is from the last couple weeks we've had the previous, or the DA come and speak to you. We've always had the Parole Department come and speak. This is the type of input and direction that potentially give assistance to the Parole Department or direction to the Parole Department or staff as it relates to solving those or handling some of those issues that were expressed. Commission activities. Hearings and presentations. The Commission will meet on a monthly basis, inviting criminal justice stakeholders to report individual activities and efforts to educate the Commissioners on the stakeholders' capabilities, issues, and concerns. These reports will provide the opportunity to question the presenters on community and criminal justice issue and identify areas for praise and improvement. One of the other activities will be the CompStat program. When the information is available, the Commission will receive crime statistics and data-driven analysis. The information gained from this presentation will better inform the Commission to assist on each facet of their duties. It will in no way be used for Commissioners to direct the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office or the Sheriff's Department in their operations and functions. Community input. The Commission will act as a conduit for citizen concerns as well as outreach. Each month, the Commission will include, as part of their agenda, public input on items related to the criminal justice function. Program and community recognition. The Commission may find that it is necessary to provide support and assistance to community safety programs which are having a major impact in the crime rate by granting special Commission commendations for service given that goes above and beyond. The commendations can be used as an opportunity to recommend to the Mayor any further special community recognition. And the Commission powers. The Commission will have no formal authority, either collective or as individuals. However, once knowledgeable, the Commission will be looked at as a group of experts in the criminal justice information. And that's where, when we talk about your strength and powers as a citizen body, the greater knowledge you have, the greater impact you have, and the greater ability you have to influence will then, of course, increase your authority and power amongst the decision makers in the process. And that's partly the goal, is to, create a central repository, a central, brain trust as it relates to the criminal justice process that has great influence over all the stakeholders, including the City Council, including a number of different parties. And I think there is a group of, there's no secret why you were selected to serve on this position, and those individual abilities, as well as the collective authority, will have a great influence in that Part 1 crimes, I'm sure. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions or comments and additions, modifications, however you see fit.
Are you the author of this, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Very nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add one quick thing. I would really like to compliment Jason, working with Shelley and Jim and everyone on coming up with this. This has to be yours, though. I mean, this has to be the direction that you believe in, because this is what's going to be expected of you, both by the council and the community.
Well, I agree that this is very nicely done. And I just wanted to have a discussion amongst the panel, because and make sure that we're on the path that, that we discussed last time. And certainly, as much as we thought we knew or didn't know about what affects the crime rate in Lancaster, as well as the stakeholders, this is a lot of great new information for us. And I just want to make sure that we're on track for what we said that we wanted to do in adopting advocate, educate, and advise as our duties. And then as we become more enlightened on each of these issues, there will be certain issues that will come to our attention that we will either advocate as policies and suggest perhaps to the City Council, or perhaps there will be policies and procedures that we would advise against as a body, recognizing we have no authority to either implement or enforce any of those. So I just want to have a brief discussion about that. Does that capture in your minds what we discussed last month?
I believe it does. I compliment the work of staff. I think it sets a great framework and foundation for which to work upon, but yet also doesn't put us in any type of a corner as well. So I think it fits real well.
I think it's a great job. I think you did an excellent job. Under the commission goals, if we could add maintain somewhere in there, because I don't think there's any doubt that we're going to lower the crime rate with the assets the city's putting in. But if we could put in there maintain, it would work better for me.
Good.
My only comment would be, while I know it's a aggressive goal, 300 per 10,000 residents, is there any reason why that it couldn't say, and we're still not overreaching, say, reduce the level of Part 1 crimes to 300 crimes or less per 10,000? I mean, I know it's aggressive getting there, but I certainly think the ability presents itself to get that crime, the Part 1 crimes down below 300. I certainly know that's the mayor and the city's position. I know that's something they'd like to see.
We can recraft the whole commission goal. Excuse me, to include not only the maintenance of effort as well as lessening it to the greatest extent possible.
I mean, I think both are understood. I don't think that anyone up here or in the community believes that it's the mayor's goal or the city's goal in general to reach that a one-time event and then stop. I mean, certainly it's understood, but I think it's good to have it stated in the goal itself, to maintain it and to reduce it to 300 parts per 10,000 or less.
We will do some wordsmithing and include both of those ideas.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the list under Commission of Citizen Experts, and I think that's just a great job of identifying the stakeholders. I noticed most of those are governmental stakeholders, and I'm wondering, have we excluded any local citizen groups that might have a stakeholder interest in coming before the Commission and presenting some views about what we should be doing?
Yeah, I would agree with you, because I know Mr. Johnson, with what he's doing, has an impact in that, and of course, Grace Fellowship and some of the Grace that they're doing over there at the homeless shelter. So, of course, and we will need to add that. I don't know that we can be all-encompassing of every nonprofit, but I would add that all other agencies, nonprofit organizations, civic groups that have some impact as well. Okay. So we'll add that as well. Thank you. We did notice we also left off the CHP. I just noticed that as I was going down that list, so they're probably a very important stakeholder in this as well.
Jason, just under the community or groups, I believe that Los Angeles County, they're now Superior Court judges. I don't believe we have any municipal court judges anymore. They might be a little sensitive to that.
Everybody would like to be superior. Well, if there are any more questions, what we can do is take the time to digest it, look over it in your spare time. We're not going to approve it tonight, but hopefully we'll come back if there's any other modifications over the next month that you guys see that might need to be added or changed. We'll be free to, we'll put it as an agenda item to approve and authorize as your commission goals and objectives. I don't think that there's any. We don't want you to push you tonight to do it. Obviously, it takes some digestion. So with that, I'd be happy to take any more questions or move on to the next item.
Good.
Thank you very much for your hard work, Jason. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. And it was a lot of hard work, but we appreciate it.
Moving to new business item number 5, Buy Local, Stay Safe campaign. We're going to get an update from Vice Chairman Christ.
I'm really excited about this. This is about a community coming together. We put the media schedule together. We talked to all the different auto dealers. There's a couple that haven't been contacted as far as scheduling is concerned. The City of Lancaster's on board. The City of Lancaster's Auto Mall's on board. I talked to the City of Palmdale. The City of Palmdale is on board with the caveat of their auto mall they have to have a signed contract from them. So I think everything is really good. Time Warner has really come true for us. They're not only doing their marketing position, but they're doing their advertising position. So we're getting a package of $500,000 worth of education to the public to tell them where the tax dollars go, why they go, and why it's important for everybody to buy their cars locally. It's just a great project. By the end of this week, hopefully, we'll be done and have it. And we look to kick it off on March 2nd and start the advertising. They're doing their commercials right now. They're doing everything that they need to get done. So while we're signing the contracts, and it all looks good. So
I would like to add something if I could. Commissioner Chris has done an outstanding job. I was telling him earlier, not maybe half facetiously, that probably in the history of the Antelope Valley, the 2 cities and 9 auto dealers have never signed the same paper or contract ever in the history. So to get those folks together is an incredible feat. But to put together a program that actually is going to work and it's very cost effective, my hat's off to you.
it works. And again, it's about the whole community coming together.
That's outstanding. Thank you very much. That takes us to new business item number 7. We're awaiting Judge Tom White. But at what time is he going to be here?
Yeah, his plan was to be here for 11:30 for a 30-minute presentation.
What I might suggest, if we're going to wait for that, is that you go through maybe commission comments, and then you could take a recess while you're waiting for him, if you'd like.
Okay.
You have an item on here for Shelley to give a report on the board.
That has been taken off of the calendar for and to be presented next month. Okay, we can go to we'll go to comments. Anything that we need to discuss before we take a recess in awaiting?
Mr. Chairman, if Lieutenant Doughton could give us an update on the recent crime stats and what's going on, would that be helpful for you?
That'd be great.
Mr. Commissioner, and I'll report on the crime stats. We've had a great January to follow up from a great 2008. I'm looking at unofficial statistics right now, and it looks like we're going to be down 21% for the month of January as compared to the first month of 2008. So the way I look at statistics is I look from January of 08 to January of '09. And comparing those Part 1 stats, we're down 21%. The crimes that we really put on the goal to really reduce, to impact our Part 1 crimes were burglary and petty theft. Not forgetting all the other crimes, but those were the real significant numbers that we looked at that we said, where could we really impact the Part 1 crime rate? Well, res burgs. So, as you know, for 2008 we had a fair reduction, but we're right on line to see that reducing even further. The burglary is down now 8% for 2009, the first month. Petty theft, which is a huge number. We have a lot of petty thefts when you look at the total number. We're down 23% in petty thefts from January of '08 to January of '09. So those are big, significant numbers. We're still seeing decreases in the auto thefts and some of the other property crimes. There's been a small rise in some of the aggravated assaults and robberies, but when we're talking one or two as compared to last year increase. The percentages, are a little higher, 9% increase in ag assaults, but when you look at the actual number, it's only 2 or 3. And the same thing with robbery. We're up in robberies by 11%. But when you look at the actual number of robberies that were up, it may be 3 or 4. So those aren't significant numbers. The burgs, however, when you look at the amount of burgs, you're talking 30 or 40 that were down as compared to last year. So that's about the most significant numbers for the month of January.
What would you point to, Don, why do you think that's come down so much? Is there a program that's working effectively that's causing that drop?
Well, I think it's overall enforcement. I mean, in the many years that I've been here, this is absolutely the best enforcement efforts that we've had. The partnerships with the city, with the neighborhood watches, with the neighbors, the citizens actually being aware and calling in and notifying law enforcement of suspicious activity. The burglary suppression team, I mean, without a doubt, they've been, a big part of our reduction, because what we're doing is we're taking all these petty thieves off the street. We've been very, very successful. When you look, we've averaged 40 a month at least of these petty thieves. Now they're doing the res burgs, but we know that they're involved in everything else: the auto thefts, the auto burgs, the thefts from the retail stores. So that's made a significant push. So I think that if I could put my finger on it, I mean it's the citizen involvement, and then the ability to take these petty thieves off the street.
What do you think's happening with drug use? Which drugs, and are we increasing, decreasing? What do you think?
I mean, it's a battle. The drug use and the narcotics, it's a battle every day. We've got specific teams that are dealing with it, and we're seeing every type of drug coming in. I mean, meth is still huge, cocaine is huge, and marijuana. We're lucky right now because we've got a narco task force that is 8 deputies and 2 supervisors that are assigned up here full-time, that are going out, and they're not only doing street level, but they're doing distribution investigations, and they've been very successful. And then you couple our top team and our LANCAP team that have been, very involved in narcotics enforcement. We take a lot of people to jail for narcotics.
Can you give us an update on Lancaster becoming a research and development station?
Well, they just had a press conference, and sounds like it's a done deal. We are going to be the research and development station. There's a lot of neat things coming up. There's a lot of technology that if we're the first or the first few stations in the Sheriff's Department to get the technology that's being developed, I mean, we're going to go forward.
Don, you talked about a 21% reduction in crime. Was there also a corresponding increase in arrests for that same period over January of 2008? Can you tell us a little about your arrest stats?
You know, I didn't bring the arrest stats. I mean, the arrest stats, you know, from month to month, I got to tell you, have been just about static. I mean, we average about the same amount of arrests, you know, over the last 5 to 6 months. We've seen just, it's a steady number. There really hasn't been a real sharp decrease or increase. It's running about the same right now. So, I mean, it's huge. I mean, we just did under 15,000 arrests for the 2008 season. So, I mean, that's up about 3,000 over the year before.
Real quickly, just on the research and development, because I read the press release, and it sounds like there's resources coming in to the station, but are the resources going to be with that as well, that you can actually use it the way it's intended to be used, and track it, and see if it's making a difference?
You know, I would hope that we'd gain some extra resources. I mean, I think a lot of it, we have, like I said earlier, I think this is the best enforcement effort, and probably we have the most resources that I've ever seen up here. And we have the ability, if they give us the resources, or I mean the technology, I think we have the resources already at hand to handle a lot of it. I mean, we just need the technology. I mean, if we were able to, you know, move forward into like the CAD terminals and all the new the mobile digital computers and GPS. You know, I had a discussion. I took Mr. Rattan for a tour of our dispatch facility, and he was very surprised that we weren't able to take a look and immediately tell where all our units are at any given time. The technology is there. Many departments have that, but you know, it's just not available to us. I mean, we have an idea where our units are from time to time, just because we know where we've sent them by radio call, and we can, you know, by talking to them, we can determine where they are. But I mean, to have the ability to look up and look at a map and be able to develop, you know, a plan by looking at your resources would be huge.
Is that a union issue?
No, I don't think so. No. I mean, there's we've been online for a couple of years to get that on a test basis. Talks began right after Steve Sorensen was murdered out in Lake LA, and it took us many hours just to determine where he was. So there have been talks. Is it a union issue? Sometimes. But I think they've got over that, and I think it's just a matter of getting it installed.
What would it take to do that?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I know that the technology's there. I know that the department has, they've got contracts where it's available. Originally, they were going to, you know, start off a test with, I think it was 6 vehicles.
I just wanted to make 2 points. One, what Don said. The first is that the technology will actually make our existing resources more effective in some of the things we're doing. So that's the intent there, is to make patrol and everything more effective, give them the tools, just like the data. The other thing I wanted to, and I'm remiss in not bringing this early, in terms of crime stats, we have an agreement with Palmdale and with the media and with the Sheriff's Department that on an official basis we release them to the media quarterly, because they could fluctuate month to month. We also release them as crime rate, which takes into account the population increase or decrease. And what Don's quoting you is the raw numbers. So what we do is we release that on a quarterly basis, and then we have an agreement with Palmdale. We release it on the same day and all of that. And so when you're hearing this, that's all great, but the official releases come out quarterly.
Thank you.
It's just good to hear that you have the technology and the resources to tap into it as well, because I think we've all seen on occasions where there's the technology, but you haven't been able to use it for the purposes that it's intended to do. So that's good to hear.
You have a loud voice.
You want me to repeat it?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
If there's no further discussion, we'll take a brief recess until Judge White arrives.
Mr. Chairman, Shelley said that you can get your photographs taken now in the EOC and during the break and have that done so you don't have to do it after the meeting.
Very good. So we'll stand in recess for 15 minutes.
And the pictures are, you can also have your pictures taken immediately following the meeting as well, if you don't make it a break.
It must be right here. This time, we reconvene the Criminal Justice Commission meeting. At this time, we move to new business item number 7, and it's a personal pleasure for me to introduce our next speaker. He's a longtime friend. Judge Tom White is the presiding judge of the Lancaster Superior Court, and thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule today for coming, Your Honor.
Thank you, Greg, and members of the commission and fellow attendees. Thank you for letting me appear before you today. I understand that there are going to be some questions about the state of the court, about courtrooms, about judges. What I'd like to do is invite you to interrupt me at any point. I have some information I thought I would present that might be helpful in getting us started, but feel free to interject at any point if you have specifics. To start with, I do want to indicate that Rob Paris and I met recently, and Rob asked me to share some thoughts about how perhaps we could better interface and interrelate in terms of what the court can do better for the community, what you folks could do to assist the court in accomplishing the goal. I have some concerns, and let me just put those out right off the bat. The volume of cases that we handle in this district is astounding. I just got off the phone a little bit ago with Bobby Schuett, who is my counterpart, supervising judge of the North Valley or San Fernando district, and we were commiserating about the lack of judges available and how we're struggling to get our caseloads out. But when we compare apples and apples, it's very difficult for another district to say that they're working any harder or handling any more cases with fewer resources than we are here. So that's an ongoing struggle, and that's one of the reasons I'm hoping that we can continue to share, because I think we can all work together to accomplish some of our long-term goals, which is, frankly, to provide the best possible justice to the community. And that's what we're all dedicated to doing, and I know from your good works and your dedicated members that you share that. And that's one reason I'm so happy to be able to appear before you. In terms of handling that heavy volume, I do want to assure you that we have the envy of the county in terms of a bench. Years ago, when I first arrived out here, I was told that we were in a form of chaos, and I didn't realize it when I got appointed out here that I was going to immediately take over as supervising judge. That was about 6 years ago. Typical term is about 1 or 2 years. So for whatever reason, I assured them that I would stay and serve as long as I was needed. And here we are today, 6 years later. So I can only assume that they're happy with what we're doing. I can also assume by the comments we get from the other supervising judges in the other 11 districts that we're doing the right thing. We have some of the best qualified judges that you could imagine. I won't go through all of their backgrounds and histories here. We don't have the time. But I can tell you that we are now the envy of the county, because we have high-powered prior prosecutors who have done very heavy cases to the extent that I could put them right into a special circumstances murder. Now, I do try to give them a warm-up. I think one judge I was able to give a felony rape or child molest or something before she got the murder case, but they're jumping right in there. We are now handling about 3 murders as we speak. There's one out for deliberations. Judge Zaki last week took a verdict on a special circumstances murder, which is certainly more serious than just the standard murder, which I hate to characterize as such, but unfortunately that's one of the levels. The next level up would be death penalty special circumstances. So I'm able to assure you that one of my interim goals here is to qualify at least 3 judges for death cases. I've got one qualified, Judge Lisa Chung, who is my assistant supervising judge, and the 27th of March, I'm sending 2 more judges to death penalty class, and then they're going to follow that up in March with a 3-day, 4-day seminar up in Sacramento or San Francisco, learning how to handle those cases. And the end object, of course, is to keep these cases local. Can you imagine the disruption to the families and the victims? You've already heard about it. You've seen it. And we have tried everything we can to keep that from happening any more than we've had to do. So lately we have been able to keep most of those higher profile cases here. The one exception, as you're probably aware, is the O'Keefe case. And I'm constantly trying to dispel misunderstandings about that. At one point, I actually heard the motion for change of venue on the case, and I denied that motion. But another bench officer in another locale had already set that for a hearing, and the lawyers had to show up for that hearing. The case was deemed long cause and immediately assigned to the long cause court down in Los Angeles, and that's how it ended up there. We are now, I believe, in deliberations on that case, and verdict will come out shortly. It's a retrial. If I'm going too fast, let me know, or if you want to jump in, let me know. Statistics. I had the magnetometer statistics, who goes through the doors, and basically when we started out here in 2003 and opened up, we were running maybe 40 to 40-some thousand people through the doors. We're up to an average of 75,000. This is per month. Sometimes we get 5,000 a day, so with those stats, I believe we're up about 98,000 a year. And if you compared that with other districts, San Fernando, neck and neck. And yet we have more cases in the misdemeanor arena, and probably felonies too, than San Fernando. And I think John Antelope shared some of that information with you, and I also have a sheet here that if you want to pass it around, I'll be happy to share it. Those are the actual stats that we use from downtown to show how many felonies, how many misdemeanors are filed during a certain period, and it'll give you a little bit of an idea on how we're increasing. Now, judging from our recent presentation to Sheriff Baca and from Sheriff Baca, we know that the heavy crimes are down. However, the misdemeanors are way up. Why is that? Because we know, largely due to some of your efforts and the sheriff's fine efforts, they have gone into the gang areas, into their homes. They have gone out to the community, taken high-profile stances, arrested a lot of people on even the lesser offenses, just to enforce the concept that that type of lifestyle is not going to hack it here in the Antelope Valley. And so those types of crimes, which we might term the lesser crimes, are up. And Mr. Nantroop may have talked to you a little bit about that. We have more cases, for instance, than, I forget, he told me, it's either Van Nuys or San Fernando, which has a very similar situation in terms of caseload. They have a lot more courts. They have a lot more bench officers. So let me get to that issue and also perhaps how you could help us. One thing is I talked with Rob at some length about having part-time or pro tem judges help us out. We thrive on pro tem judges. I believe in them. I like them. I was one for probably 20-some years before I became a full-time bench officer. And I can't tell you how much that helps the court system. We use more pro tems probably than most other districts at this point, but we could use more. That takes the pressure off the judges so we can do the murders, the rapes, the child molests, the robberies. It allows those bench officers to do good works in traffic, in small claims, in family law. And without their help, I don't know that we could continue. It would just be too much of a volume. So unfortunately, we don't have that many. What does it show, Rob? About 13, I believe, on the list there from the local group that's volunteered. We actually have more people out of this area who volunteered as judge pro tems than we have here in our own Antelope Valley. So we have put a push on, and Rob and Rex and the bar members are going to do what they can to sign up a sizable number of people. I've talked to the chair, Stuart Rice. Judge Stuart Rice is the chair of the pro tem program downtown, and they usually like 60 people to do specialized training, which is required before we can have pro tems come in now. And I think I've talked him into Well, we mentioned the figure 20, but I think if we had a good 12 or 15, we could talk him out here, and he'd be happy to present that part of the program that is mandatory one-on-one with the supervising judge. Can't be done on the internet. We can do that, and we can qualify another dozen pro tems. That would help immensely. So with support of the local bar and obviously your support as members of the commission, I think we can encourage a lot of the local people. The other thing is, if we can encourage more of the locals to go for judge, it's surprising to me how few local attorneys are interested in becoming a bench officer. It's at the point now where they're practically begging me to come up with names. And I do have some names. The last two names we put forward, Benny Osorio and Bernie LaForteza, became judges. Governor appointed them a few months ago. We got them because we sponsored them. There have been others that we have done the same thing for. Even Judge Lisa Chung, our assistant supervising judge, we sponsored her many years ago and got her. So if any of you know attorneys who are good, solid, competent lawyers with over 10 years experience, please have them contact me and let's get them in the mix. I can try to give them some assistance on how to get started. With regard to the criminal cases and keeping them here, I know that's something you're all interested in. If Mr. Nantroop didn't confirm that, I can tell you that we have retained most of our very serious cases, special circs and murder cases, other than the one that I mentioned that we just couldn't do much about. But I have pledged to downtown that we would do everything we could if they gave us qualified bench officers to keep those cases here. We had a local case, I don't want to get too specific, but it was a child molest case, some 50 kids involved, local teacher, and we had no courts. And I just, I could not allow all those kids, plus their parents and guardians, to have to go downtown and go through that process 80-some miles away every day. And so what I did, even though I had things going and had a full calendar and did all the pro-pers and so on, I took that case myself and tried it. It took me 2 months to try that case, but we kept it here. And the good part was when, even though it was during school sessions, we would line it up ahead of time. Kids and their sponsors or parents would come over, testify, off the stand, go back. And we were able to save a lot of inconvenience that way. So we have dedicated ourselves to those types of cases as well, to try to keep everyone up here if at all possible. We've done a pretty good job of it. So far we're sending out the lesser cases only, and those are only maybe one every other month or so. When I first started out here, there was one period in May of '04, I think it was, I had to send 15 cases to Los Angeles. We also then had a backlog of over 365-day serious cases. We've managed to reduce that to 49 from close to 100 at the time. So we've cut that in two, and we're working on whittling that down more and more. So you've got some good, hard-working bench officers over there. I'm really proud of that group, and I can assure you that they're doing it in good cheer. The surprising thing is we don't get griping and kvetching about long hours and how tough it is. Everybody holds together. Everybody calls me before they leave at the end of the day, which for some judges is 6 o'clock. And they say, is there anything else we can do? Anybody we can help? Need us to help with prelims? So I'm very, very happy with the group that we have. We can always use more. Now, courtrooms. And then I'll see if you have some specifics. Courtrooms right now have been built out. Thanks to Supervisor Antonovich, who arranged for financing, we were able to build 2 of our 6 shells that never did get built out originally. So I've already filled those, and downtown has already committed that they would staff one of those courtrooms, which is a commitment they made when Mike offered to try to have them built out. So we'll have a full conference about that, and similar to what we did with Sheriff Baca, perhaps in April, once the courtroom is open and it's staffed. And I'd be pleased if any or all of you could attend that event as well, so that we could we could celebrate that additional courtroom. But in the meantime, as soon as they open, I've already got the matrix set up, got them filled up. We're ready to move in as soon as they give us the sign-off. Now, we have 4 more, obviously, that are shells, 2 on the 3rd floor, 2 on the 2nd floor. And anything that anyone can think of to try to get funding to build those out is going to save you a lot of time and trouble down the road. Because, as you may or may not know, the state has now taken over all courthouses. And it's no longer under the jurisdiction of the County of Los Angeles. So the Antonovich Courthouse, and this is something most people don't realize, and a tribute to Mike Antonovich, even knowing this was going to happen, knowing that the county would not control that courthouse any longer and it would go to the state, he still was able to come up with the funds to build those courtrooms out. I thought that was very selfless on his part. So the state basically determines funding now for any further improvements or build-outs. We have recently received funds, but they are to the McCourtney Center, our Juvenile Justice Center. We have 4 bench officers over there, called the Old Courthouse. Some people refer to it as that. It's our Justice Center, though. All juvenile matters heard there. And I believe some $8.2 million has been set aside for improvements and renovations over there. Nothing has been set aside for renovations or build-outs on the Antonovich Courthouse. I think if we all work with our legislators, our local associations, the mayor, council, commissions, we will be able to convince the state that by doing some work now and putting up some funding now, it would be a savings in the long run where they wouldn't have to try to build new courthouses or put up new facilities. We're ready to go at this point. We can staff them. I'm sure that our leadership downtown will support us in it. Problem is, it takes time. It's taken about a year, maybe a little over, to build out these last 2 courtrooms. So if we started now, we're probably realistically looking at a year or so from now. In the meantime, we will continue to meet the challenges as best we can. I saw a side of Mayor Harris at the Bacchus celebration that I told Rob I really hadn't seen or appreciated before. And the passion and the involvement that he displayed really impressed me, because I see that dedication. He is absolutely dedicated to improving the community and making it safe. My goals for our judges, I tell them all the time, daily goals are, number 1, provide justice for the community. Number 2, handle that heavy volume. Number 3, have fun and learn something while you're doing it. 4, go home safe. Guys like this help us do that. We had a death threat a few days ago. Not uncommon, unfortunately. We jumped right on it. Our Judicial Protective Services did what they needed to do, and we actually traced it back. And we're going to be taking care of that shortly. So it's not a safe place in this community any longer. I've been coming out here and involving myself since the early 70s, and used to have an office here. I've seen the community change. Justice Frank Jackson, longtime friend and mentor, colleague, is heartbroken over what's happened. And I know a lot of you would have similar stories to share who've been here for some time. And I see a lot of people making that change right now, and we want to be part of that. We want to help and do what we can do. Any questions, comments?
Judge White, is the rate limiting step space or personnel? If you had the judges, would there be any place for them to work?
It's both. I've actually created 2 courts that never should have existed at a time that we badly needed to do more work, and we didn't have the space to do it. I talked them into giving me a couple of extra bench officers, and we converted a reporter's storage room into a courtroom. And we are actually using that as a fully functional courtroom even now. And I was able to, what I call, float another bench officer. We have a retired bench officer who's assigned to this court as long as he's willing to do this, and he floats to any courtroom that is not occupied. So I calendar the judges' vacations and seminars and time off so that hopefully there's always a courtroom for this bench officer to go into, and we just float the staff around. So I would have to say it's both of those things, but downtown, our leadership downtown, Judge McCoy, Judge Edmond, are very interested in working with this community, and I think that if we had the facilities, if we could get the courtrooms, they would find a way to give us the bench officers.
What's the role of evening court in expanding the functional facility?
Excellent question, Dr. Brown. 3-4 years ago, I tried to do that as well, because we have an extra chambers for every courtroom, and I could run shifts. I could do split shifts if I had the go-ahead. Problem is, and we do have night court once, at least once a month, sometimes twice. But problem is the security costs are so high, because you have the possibility of remand, even if it's a traffic court. There still is that possibility. So they have to hold all of the security personnel outside to screen people coming in. They have to have deputies and bailiffs and sheriffs standing by in the event there are problems. And so the costs are quite high. My point back then, and I think still might be, the costs, though, are less than building a new courtroom. Is that that's what you're getting at. So I still see that as a possibility, that we could do that. Anyone else?
I think one of the things that, from the public's point of view, that can be very frustrating is jury duty. And in that regard, I recognize the complexity of juggling a number of different responsibilities that the court has. But jurors take off an 8-hour day to come down to the courthouse and often maybe only function on a 4-hour day basis, meaning a trial that might be done in 3 days takes 6 days, and they take the extra 3 days off. Is there any solution for that?
There are approaches that we're using now. Solution, sure, would be plenty of courts and plenty of judges so that we could dedicate long cause courts. We could call jurors in at 9 in the morning. They'd start on the case. They'd finish at 4:30 in the afternoon. We don't have that luxury right now. We're lucky to squeeze in a couple of hours of trial time in the afternoon. When you figure our misdemeanor courts are doing anywhere from 55 to 75 cases per day, just general audience cases, motions, all that goes with it. And then they have to, at 1:30 or 2, start a jury trial, and then work that through till about 4:30 with a break in between for the jurors and the staff. That doesn't give a lot of time. So one solution I've come up with is I've reconfigured the top floor, made all the courts on the top floor, with the drug court exception, felony trial courts, and we're setting Assistant Supervising Judge Chung aside as a longer cause trial court, giving her only one matrix number, which instead of 3, assigning cases by how they end in the numbers, giving her 1 so that she can start trials maybe at 10 or 10:30 in the morning, and then we'll all try to help her. So that's one possibility, is have a longer or long cause trial court. The other one is we're wasting jurors. I acknowledge that. I don't like the statistics I saw in our district, so I've now told our judges, all of them have to get approval from me to go over the minimum number of jurors that we normally summon for a case. So if it's, say, 30 jurors or 35, and they've got a child molest case, I might give them 50 jurors. But no more can I give them 70, 80 jurors. And so we're hoping to keep the juror pool down. That way we don't waste as many. We don't waste their time so that they come in and not get called and get frustrated. So those are 2 things that we're working on right now. Solution's going to take a while.
Any more questions?
I thought there was some money that was set aside by the county to do the courtrooms. We just haven't got it yet.
Well, the 8.2 is dedicated to the McCourtney Center. Cameron Smythe was able to obtain $50 million, I believe, for his court in Glendale, and I believe it's another $50 million for Santa Clarita. We get none of those funds.
there were initially funds set aside for build-out that Supervisor Antonovich was involved with, and I don't know if there's much left over from that. So there may be a bit of money there. I would have to talk to Mike and see once we get the final walkthrough, and hopefully don't have any more floods. We've had 7 floods over there, if you can imagine, and that's delayed things immensely and driven the costs up. But there may be some money left over from that, Mr. Chris, but I'm not aware of any other large pool of money that's been set aside for improvements. Those floods, by the way, were bizarre, and as you know, we've had a lot of bizarre happenings at the courthouse. We've had floods, we've had fires. I caught half a dozen to a dozen inmates setting fire to the front bark out in the courthouse, and I basically ran them off, ran in, got a fire extinguisher, tried to put it out, calling the fire department on my cell phone, and we've had, I guess it's pestilence in a sense. We had the invasion of large flying ants that went up the side of the courthouse, dropped down through the vents, and bit some of our staff, sending at least my JA to the hospital for anaphylactic shock. So what's left? Flood, fire, famine. It's been a bizarre few years, and so we've been able to cope despite all of those challenges. But certainly, if you folks can come up with some suggestions, I've given you my cards. I'm very accessible. You're welcome to call. I'll be happy to meet with anyone and discuss good methods of providing that justice that I so badly want to do. Mr. Greer?
Judge White, I had a question. Did you say there were available or 4 courtrooms that still need to be built out?
Yes, sir.
The shell exists?
There are.
And what would the reasonable estimate be for cost to build each one of those out?
It's about $1 million, and what I'm going to do is just pass this around. I've already seen this. This is the diagram, and the shells are indicated on the floors. And you'll see how we've set up the courts to have all felonies top, civil on the 3rd floor, misdemeanors on the 2nd. There are 2 shells at the far end, the north end of the 2nd and the 3rd floors, and $1 million each is what's estimated to build them out.
And if by some good fortune those funds are found and those were built out, then as far as the staffing, are those the funds available for the staff that it would take to actually operate those courtrooms? I mean, is this like the movie, if you build it, they will come? I mean, if the courtrooms are actually constructed and finished, then is there a mechanism available to get the necessary funds to staff those so that they can be operated?
Another excellent question, and the answer is a little bit vague only because I don't have the authority to speak on behalf of the presiding judge in terms of staffing. I know that our budget concerns are, as with everyone else's, grave for the coming year or years, and I know that we'll have to fit in somewhere in order to get approval and budgeting for those units. What Supervisor Antonovich did was agree to build out 2 of them if the court would agree and commit to staffing at least 1 of them. So perhaps something on that order would have to be arranged where we talk to our headquarters, the administrative offices in Sacramento, and see if we couldn't get a commitment that's similar to that, which is passed through the presiding judge. And if they can make that commitment, then in a sense it is what you described, because we still have 1 left up there, and hopefully they'll find a way after building it to get a judge to come out there. And if we build 2 more, same thing. Perhaps they can commit to 1 and then ultimately find a way to fill that 2nd void. Because at any given time with our stats, I estimate it's hard to compare apples and apples. We're anywhere from 3 or 4 judges down to as many as 7 or 8. And we can't continue with the increase in filings cases we have. So at some point, they'll have to be filled. They'll have to be staffed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You said that Cameron Smythe got $50 million for Santa Clarita,
Yes.
and Santa Clarita has a less crime rate, and so is it another case that the Board of Supervisors is not looking out for the Antelope Valley? Is that state money?
I'm not aware of how Cameron was able to get that measure through. I used to serve in Santa Clarita before I came out here in that courthouse, and so I'm a little bit aware of the needs there. The needs have increased drastically. I don't believe they've increased to the extent that we've seen here in Antelope Valley, but somehow, because there are only 4 courtrooms there, he was able to convince the powers that be that they would have a great need over the next few years. If they remain where they are, there's no way that they could possibly expand the courthouse. And I think what he did was put out a good, credible case for having to build elsewhere. I don't believe, unless they just tear it down and go up, I don't believe they could use that court facility. So it might be more of an eventual need in that particular area that could only be filled by building a new facility. And believe me, I understand the concern about neglecting the Antelope Valley. Judge McCoy, our new presiding judge, Judge Edmond, have pledged to me that they would do everything that they can do to support this district. They've been out here more than some of the other judges in the past. He came out not long ago and basically shook hands with every single person in the courthouse, right down to the cafeteria folks and the janitorial staff. They want everyone to know that they are willing to be part of the community and do what they can do. So I think more so than any other time in the past, we have an opportunity with that leadership to assist us.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
David? Any more questions? No?
All right. Thank
Judge
you.
White, thank you so much for coming today. I know you have a very busy schedule, and you've taken very valuable time to be here today, and we thank you so much for that.
My pleasure. Thank you all. Thank you.
Looks like we have no public business from the floor. Do we have any comments from the commission at all? Any discussion? No? Okay. At this time, I adjourn the Criminal Justice Commission meeting. Our next meeting, regular meeting, will be March the 11th, 2009 at 10 a.m. We stand adjourned.